last time, we ended our Roald Dahl and illustrated by Quentin Blake story called The Giraffe, Pally, and Me. And it's now time for a new start for our book. And I wanted to choose a Roald Dahl story, The Azio Trot, but I think you guys are not well interested if only one author keep going. So, I think my Azio Trot book will be the later after this book. So this book is retold from the Lucy Maud Montgomery original, The Anne of Green Gables. It's a classic starts, so let's read. Chapter 1. Mrs. Rachel Lynde is surprised. One day in early June, as Mrs. Rachel Lynde looked out her window, she saw Matthew Cuthbert ride by. He was wearing a white collar and his best suit of clothes, a sure sign he was living Avonlea. His horse was budgy-looked, new cleaned. Where could he be going? Can you guess where he's going? Mrs. Lynde knew that Matthew was quite a man who rarely went far from home. Although she thought long and hard, she did not know what to make of what she had just seen. I'll just step over the Green Gables and ask his sisters, Marilla, where he's gone for after the sea, she told herself. Mrs. Lynde walked along the path beside the brook. This brook ran through most of Avonlea. It started near the Cuthbert place, twisted and turned, bobbed through pools and over rocks. By the time it reached and hallowed near Mrs. Lynde's house, it was calm and quiet. People said that even a brook would never risk making too much noise near Mrs. Lynde's place. Green Gable was built far back from the main road by Marilla and Matthew's father, a man as quiet as shy as his son. It sat far back from the main road, surrounded by orchards. No wonder Marilla and Matthew were so set in the way, with only trees and one other to talk to. Mrs. Lynde said, but their home certainly is lovely. The house and Green Gables looked well cared for, but wasn't street sick for stone to be found in the yard. Privately, she wondered whether Marilla Cuthbert swept that yard was often to sweep her house. One could have eaten a meal off that ground. She locked in the kitchen door and entered. The kitchen was large, with big windows looking out for the yard and orchards. Sunlight poured in. Marilla was sitting at the table, knitting. Mrs. Lynde noticed that the table was set for 3 people, and that Marilla did not use her good dishes. The dinner guest must not be good, too important. Mrs. Lynde was now more curious than ever. Nothing unexpected ever happened at Green Gable. Good afternoon, Rachel, Marilla said. How is your family? Marilla was a tall, thin woman. Her dark hair, always twisted into the hard nettle knot at the back of the head, showed some gray streaks. We're fine. I was concerned about you, though, when I saw Matthew go by with the horse and buggy. Is everything all right? Marilla had expected her. She knew that Matthew would drive right past Mrs. Lynde's window, making her curious despite her different. Or perhaps because of them, they were friends. She tried not to smile at Rachel Lynde's attempts and discover more information. I'm quite well today, thank you. Although I had quite a headache yesterday. Matthew had Bright River, and we're getting a little boy from the orphanage in Nova Scotia. Matthew went to the train station to get him. So if Marilla said that to Matthew had gone to the Bright River to fetch kangaroo from Australia, Mrs. Lynde couldn't have been more surprised. Is that true, Marilla? What on earth put such a notion in your head? Marilla spoke as if getting an orphan boy was a common, everyday event. Matthew is getting up in year. He's 60. His heart troubles him is a great deal. And we thought a boy would be big help. Mrs. Spencer was going to go to the orphanage to get herself a little girl, so we went words to asking her back a boy for us. We planned to bring him up right. We give him a good home and sent him to school. We got a telegram today. They will arrive on 5:30 train at Bright River. Well, Marilla, Rachel Lynde began. She prided herself on always speaking in her mind, and this was no exception. I think you're doing a foolish thing, a risky thing in bringing a stranger into your home. You know nothing of this boy or of his family. Marilla didn't look up for her nickname. I've had worries of myself, she admitted, but Matthew was set on the idea. He so rarely sets his mind on everything that I felt I should give him. Besides, Rachel, there are risks and some more things in my life. Well, I hope it turns all right, said Mrs. Lynde. But her tone indicated she thought it was unlikely. Although she would have liked to stay and meet an orphan boy, Mrs. Lynde knew it was time to leave. She would just have a time to run to the Bell's place to tell them the news before supper. I do feel sorry about the young boy, said to herself. Imagine living that household with the Cuthberts, who knows nothing about the children's. I often wonder that they are average children themselves. So, this is end of chapter 1. So see you in chapter 2. Bye-bye.